Have you heard of the new addition to the Go For Donny podcast? I haven't either, but it's called Switch to Channel 2. That is where Donny will get to ask his guests some questions so you, the listener, get to know them better. And remember, hashtag HTFU.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Go For Donny, Switch to Channel 2. This is the new little segment that we have because on set, whenever we had to have chatter, we'd always switch to Channel 2 from our main channel so that way we can talk, and everyone on set would always go to Channel 2 to hear what they're saying. So we have...
Wait, I thought I was the only one that did that. Everybody did that?
Everybody did. So yeah, so you'd have
man.
to come up with like a code. So if you said switch to 2, that really meant switch to Channel 4.
Oh,
But yeah, it was,
so
it was a whole
sneaky.
thing. Yeah. So we have 10 random questions for you, Tanner. So our listeners, your fans, get a chance to hear some more about you. So my first question, which everyone wants to know, what was your least favorite episode of Top Gear?
Oh my gosh! See, I knew you'd ask stuff like that.
Yep.
I can't recall episodes like that very easily. But okay, I would say the 500 miles for $500. That I'm a bit of a germaphobe, and we bought cars that cost $500 and would go to see on a 500-mile road trip how they would do. These cars were so freaking gross, and when they bought them, of course, they were still full of cigarette butts and everything. So one of the first stops that we made was to a forensic scientist who analyzed the cars and took samples of the pools of liquid in the seat that you had just driven like 125 miles, and they identified all of it. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. We ended up putting like hazmat suits on and stuff to drive in them after that, but it was the hardest 500 miles of my life, I'd say.
Where was it? Was that the one we did from Santa Monica up north?
We started up north and came south, I think.
Because I remember these shitty cars. I remember like the cigarette butts and like didn't they find semen in there as well, or some?
All of them had semen. Didn't we find semen? No, they were pools. They weren't even like traces of semen. No, it was pools of semen in virtually every seat of every car. Thank you for that, Donny.
That's Top Gear for you. That's Top Gear producers. So next question would be, what would be your favorite Top Gear episode?
That's impossible.
It has to be one that I was on, of course. Favorite.
I would say my favorite for different reasons. Oh man, come on, really? I would say rental cars.
Really?
I would say rental cars because the off-roading. I like Crown Vics. I mean, I had a town car, which was even nicer.
I wonder why. Big deck seat.
Pools of semen. I didn't. I mean, it was a really nice car when we started. Obviously, that never lasted. Actually, that car made a reappearance back in the Apocalypse show as the black baddie with the Stig driving that chased the Apocalypse truck. That was the same town car.
Really? So the reason why I remember it, but I kind of remember it, is because when you guys weren't there, they'd throw me in the car and be like, hey, do this, Donny. So there was a scene where we were at Eagle Mountain and you guys were gone, and we had to get a couple more shots going up that hill to where the water tower was. And so I'm talking to Stig, and Stig's like, yeah, I'm just, we're going around the corner, just slide a little. After the corner, he's like, I'm going to hit you from behind and then we'll keep going. I'm like, yeah, okay. So we're getting into it, and I hit that thing's a piece of shit to drive as well. That bug out car.
Apocalypse one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah. So I go around the corner, and then I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. And all of a sudden I get hit from behind. I'm like, what the fuck? Because I forgot the Stig was going to hit me. And then we kept going. And then I also had to drive that thing through the fence. There's a shot that it had to bust through a gate and then ended up in the middle of a street. And we had to do that as the hotel parking lot, like at 5 a.m. In Palm Desert.
That sounds legit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, legit with me driving, of course. Yeah. I almost took out I almost took out Miles that day because Miles was by the gate on the other side, and the gates swing open. And I literally almost took out Miles that day.
It always looked. I always thought in movies when they busted through gates, I always was like, I bet that's a lot harder than it looks. I bet it grabs the car, does something weird sometimes. But
Yeah, yeah. So that was your favorite episode. Okay, all right. I like that. It's because of the shirts off party. That's the real reason that your favorite.
mainly because I finally got to see you dance with your shirt off, Donnie. It was dark. My imagination filled in some of the gaps. No, it's all
Thank
good.
God.
And you know, Rutledge out there, surprisingly flexible. That guy, for being all torso.
Does the word teabag come to memory?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'm thirsty. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was fun. Oh, okay. All right, so that's your favorite. I like that.
Okay.
Well, I have a question though. What are your thoughts about Top Gear being canceled now and Grand Tour? Any thoughts on that?
On the UK show or on the UK show? No, I think that they. You know, I was in the last episode of Top Gear, training James May to drive in a rallycross car, and then actually drove real rallycross cars, and he was my teammate in the episode. Yeah,
I'll have to watch
pretty
that.
cool.
Shit.
That ended up being the last one before it got canceled, but it was like season 22, episode 12 or something.
Season 22.
My thoughts on it. I mean, I love content that makes driving fun, and I think the guys continue to do that. And Grand Tour was, I mean, it was good that they got into a bigger money, less political situation and got to explore that. I love what the guys are doing now. All the projects that all three of those guys are doing are awesome. I mean, and I kind of have a mini farm, nothing like Clarkson Farm, but I've got like a little Foust Farm Instagram page, and we do fun content with that, but it's more just about moving out to a place that's out in the open. It's not necessarily a real bona fide income producing farm. We do sell products, but like hay and stuff. But so I love the progression of where things have gone then. But I mean, as far as the show ending, I mean, it's I wouldn't say that it's run its course, but with those three guys, it was a unique experience that they certainly were not able to replicate in the U.S. And that's always going to be the case. Any new chef comes in, they're going to change the menu, and it's going to be a different restaurant. Just like with U.S. Top Gear. When they came in, there's been a couple renditions of the U.S. Top Gear since ours. And people have their different preference of the menu items and the flavor of those shows. So that's just part of TV. It's interesting in the US to see how many kind of shows like Top Gear have come out in various, whether it's on Haggerty or YouTube or whatever, or Motor Trend. But that makes sense because our show was really about a couple things. It was about being ambitious, but not having really the tools or mental capacity to really fulfill your ambition. And then it was about having fun with cars. And I think it had a good audience because men could understand the competition and the stuff that we went through. And I think women thought it was funny to watch men be men. And, not to get like gender whatever, but that's just how it was. So that's that. And I heard that from Andy Willman, who was the creator of the first Top Gear. And he was like, that's why this is 45% female. It's the only car show that's 45% female viewers because, men like watching these guys hang out in buds just like they hang out with their buds. And women like laughing at men being men. And so that's, pretty straightforward stuff. But yeah, no, it was a unique show.
We're pretty entertaining. Hey, you talked about your farm. I'd love to know more about your farm. I mean, what do you plan on doing with your farm? What's it about?
Well, I lived in Steamboat before living in LA and in Orange County. So I moved, I was an instructor at an ice driving school here. This is my first driving job. And so come back here to, I got engaged And
Congratulations.
thank you very much. So
That's
we're
awesome.
getting married this summer. Yeah.
Yay.
I know. I mean, I wasn't even 50, and so I kind of rushed it a little bit, maybe. But I figure, why not? Just go for it. And my daughter graduated high school, so that was, a time that I didn't necessarily need to be there then all the time, and it was just wanted space. Wanted to get out of California and exhale a little bit and get married out here and have a place where people could come and visit and do holidays and stuff and ski a shitload.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to thank you for inviting me up there. I appreciate it.
You got it. Come on out.
But I don't know if I want to shred with you anymore, man, because the last time I shredded with you, it was there in Steamboat, and we were coming down that last steep part, and I knew you were right behind me, and we were both going fast. And I was like, fuck, man, I'm not going to let Tanner come up with me. No, I'm not going to let him do that. And I remember carving really hard, and then my board just came out. I was carving too hard, and I feel like I pulled the stomach muscle or something. And so,
that's right, you went big.
Yeah, I went big
about that.
And that was at the beginning of the shoot, I think. So that way, at least I tacked on a few days so I could enjoy myself.
You never told the story with the whole reason why you were pushing pretty hard, because you didn't want me to pass you.
Yeah.
You didn't tell the story. I don't know if you told the story that way before.
No.
Awesome.
Well, I mean, I could feel you. I could feel you right behind me, man. And I know you're ripping. I know you're shredding hard. And I was like, man, I'm just not going to let him pass me, man. And then, I only have one edge. And as soon as that one edge went, my fucking stomach muscle went.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, man, you fall so hard on a snowboard. I snowboarded one time, and I fell so hard my goggles broke on my face. Yeah, it's like, you just fall hard on snowboards.
We try not to land on our face. We try to catch ourselves.
Yeah.
But thank God for the helmets, So you talked about your daughter. I just have a question. You haven't really talked much about her. Do you think would she ever take up any your reins in driving, like some of your predecessors or your colleagues' daughters are doing today?
I always kept her private, because when we were doing Top Gear, it was she was of an age that I don't think she was old enough to really determine herself whether or not she should be on social media or have strangers follow her just because they follow her dad, stuff like that. And now she's old enough that it's fine. She can, she's old enough to make decisions for herself. But there's, she had go-karts. We drive around those, and she's like I kind of was as a kid, but smarter version, and probably more talented on an athletic version. But I was always sort of a jack of all trades. She very much was like that. She learned everything so fast, whatever sport it was, and she played so many different sports. But go-karting was the same thing. And I did those Hot Wheels stunts, right? Remember those? And so they would send me these toys, and they had these prototypes of on a skateboard that you were laying on with these handles, and you'd wiggle it to get going faster. When you lean, it had sparkers that would spark up and stuff.
Yeah.
And she did everything, and she'd get on the go-karts. I couldn't get her to go train go-karting for the sake of getting better. Only if there were these two boys that lived on the street, only if they were going to be karting also, or she was super competition driven, not self competition driven. You know what I mean? And I think that's natural, but then once you get to a point where you start to realize that you've worked up a craft and a skill set, then you start to take some pride in that skill set and work on it. But we never really got past just the straight up, if there's not something to beat, then I don't want to necessarily play.
Got it. Hey, so how did you get started? I never really heard how you got started in driving, in motorsports.
Well, I was a biology major in school, and so then smart. Obviously that led
Wicked
into
smart.
Cars. Yeah, no, it was I was studying to be a doctor in Boulder, and I got a job with an inventor who invented amusement rides, and he was one of the first entrepreneurial people that I met, and he just did what was fun for a living. I'd never met any. Now that's common. Now everybody sees YouTubers and sees everybody out there, and everybody's doing their hobby for a living. Some of them are just doing digital marketing because they like being on a computer or whatever. It's just, but people are doing fun things for a living. it wasn't like that when I was in school. In my family,
no.
were all doctors, but it was like you went and you got educated, and the further along you went in your education, the higher your salary was when you got out of school, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
right? So I like skiing and I like driving, and my dad was a competitive skier. And I sort of saw the back end of the professional side of skiing, and I didn't think that there was a living to be made there. Cars, always loved cars. I named every car from its headlights from when I was 6 years old, drove my sister crazy. But so I started looking into the industry of racing. Literally, as I was thinking about what do I think is most fun in an airplane, I saw a racetrack from the airplane landing in Denver. I drove there. It's called Second Creek Raceway. I volunteered on the race team of the guy who came to kick me off because I was too close to the track. He wanted somebody to do Excel spreadsheets and stuff for his team and get his books going. I did a little bit of that and mechanic and worked on the race cars in return for seat time. Got my license. And
How old were you? How old were you then? What age?
I was in college, so I was 20. 20. And yeah, 20, 19, 20. But there was, it was expensive. I got the license, but I couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
And so then my next job was a critical job, was at Pikes Peak International Raceway.
No shit.
Down in Colorado Springs, selling sponsorship. So I got a job they only had one sales guy, so I helped that guy. Just to learn why people spent money on motorsport. And I learned a lot about how to move the needle for companies and make motorsport pencil out. And that was critical because if it doesn't make sense, I didn't have a wealthy family that was just going to pay for it like a lot of racers do. It's if it wasn't going to pencil out for a company, then it wasn't going to last. And it's been 25 years or more that it's been going, so it's been awesome.
That is so cool. So you literally decided. How far along were you in school? Did you have your degree?
I do have it, but I didn't have it then. I was still junior.
So you're a junior and you decide, this isn't for me. I want to do something I like. And then you literally transition into working at a racetrack and getting your license.
Yeah. I did have to finish my degree. My grandfather would have killed me. So I did finish that, but I already knew when I graduated that I wasn't going to do grad school and that I wasn't going to work in a lab or any of that anymore.
That's fucking rad. So you do that. What about your first time on set or in front of a camera?
Oh, well, there's some weird parts of the automotive industry nobody really knows about. And I scoured through those. The ice driving school, for one, here in Steamboat. Ride and drive marketing events where you coach kind of in a BMW or whatever in a parking lot, like in an autocross course that they set up to, and if you have a magazine subscription to Road and Track, you might get an invite to come to something like that.
You did? You peed all over?
I did. Yeah. After that, I didn't eat asparagus for like 4 years, but it's still read the magazine. But it was, so how did I get,
so was it more cameras from those? It was when your first time being on camera or on set.
Yeah, it was Reese Millen. I started doing rally racing because of the ice driving school and because I was a lot guy on a Subaru dealership, parking cars.
I remember this, yes.
Yeah, and the lot guy, the manager, he came up to the ice driving school one time after I wasn't working there anymore, and he's like, "Oh man, we were sliding around the ice. He's like, we got to get a rally car," and I was like, "Really?" We started shopping for a rally car. I got driving suits for us, and I may have told you the version of the story where his wife, he put the driving suit on, and his wife thought he was like smoking hot in the driving suit, and then that covered 5 years of racing right there. It was, it was club level, low end racing, but we did it. And so Reese was a rally guy. I met him at a rally. He got me on Dukes of Hazzard 2005, and I was built. Yeah, I was Billy Prickett. I was the Jessica Simpson one. At the rap party, incidentally, she thought I was Topher Grace, came and gave me a big hug. It's the guy from that 70s show.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I was like, whoa, yeah, I thought she liked stunt guys. I was like, okay, it's all true. All the, all the stories, the Fall Guy stories. But she realized pretty quick that I wasn't Topher Grace. But that was an amazing thing to work on, and it was a lot of the same guys I work with now on films and commercials were on that.
That was in 2005. I'm just looking at my. So so you did Dukes of Hazzard in 2005. I thought it was later than that, huh? Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, 2005 was Dukes of Hazzard, and it was I was a cop at first, and then I was Billy Prickett, who was the bad guy, and then for the reshoots I drove the General Lee. So for about the first 15 minutes of the movie, and Reese did 90% of the General Lee driving.
No shit. Oh, I'm so jealous. Yeah. And so that was your first time on set in front of a camera?
That was my for stunt driving, yeah. For stunt
what about
driving. The first time
being in front of a
hosting,
camera? Anything, yeah.
When I was drifting, about that same time, I was doing Formula Drift, started in 2004. It was, the show was hosted by Olivia Munn, the Olivia Munn.
Oh, yeah.
Your magazines probably have her. And it was hosted by Olivia Munn and somebody else. And they, sorry to whoever else that was, because that's just wrong.
Classic.
It was another guy from Attack of the Show. So it was an ID4. You may not. Is it ID4? Was it was a video game channel?
Yeah.
And Olivia Munn was on that. And anyway, so the next season, the people who produced that show, they were like, "Hey, we got some car stuff. If you do good interviews, maybe you can host for us." I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot." It was on hotel room. It was hotel room stuff. It was called.
Oh, that's awesome! Only in hotel rooms.
Somebody order a pizza. Yeah, it was. It was called Mag-Rack, and it was like free content of somebody reviewing a car. So I would just go out and do donuts in a Corvette, and then talk about if I liked it or not. Which I didn't really have a place to stand to say whether I liked it or not, but I could go do donuts in them, and so that led into some other shows, Import Racers, Redline TV. So that was on ESPN and on Speed. And then on Speed also was Supercars Exposed, which was a fun show to make. Just went and shredded the newest supercars that were out there. And then did that with Paul Tracy on Battle of the Supercars. Paul Tracy's an IndyCar guy. Just absolute legend. And he and I would just talk shit about each other's hair and then go race. And it was the easiest show to make ever.
Sponsored by Goop.
Yeah, exactly. That's different. Yeah, but I would, we would do that, and then Top Gear came along, and it was actually the Top Gear was with NBC, the one that I auditioned for.
Oh, the first one. The first one. I
walked in. It was all British stuff. It was Jeremy Clarkson was producing it. Adam Carolla had already been chosen as a host, and they were looking for the third host. I walked in. I had like my favorite shirt, which was like this kind of like green and white plaid thing, but it had this almost tribal inscribed green thing. And the guy running the interview thought that I was taking the piss and thought that it was so funny that I wore this hideous shirt that I got the gig.
No shit.
So shit happens.
All right, wardrobe. We don't need you.
Yeah.
Goodwill. And that's awesome.
Yeah. But I mean, I answered the questions, and I probably checked a couple boxes. I think they wanted a driver. But that show, we shot a pilot that cost $2.2 million to shoot. Never came to air. Show didn't, and that's when History Channel picked it up.
Got it.
Yeah, and that was when we did casting. I kind of got the shoe in there because Hessling, I think, kind of transitioned from the NBC one over, and Rutledge. Adam was a bit of shoe in from History Channel. The casting was really to find the Rutledge. And the first time, and so we went out to a church parking lot with a Mitsubishi Evo, and there were several guys just at craft service eating red vines or whatever, and we'd just go one at a time and just go riff and chat and go talk about cars and stuff. And the three of us got in there, and Rutledge joked that he was Dom DeLuise's son.
What?
I believed it for 3 years.
You kidding me?
I thought, No,
Oh, he
such a
played it off
freaking.
well too, because he's seen all the Cannonball Run movies and.
Oh yeah, I'm
Oh,
just an idiot when it comes to like the timing of stuff. He would have to be his grandfather probably, but
yeah, you're like,
anyway,
wait, let me do the math. How is that
yeah.
possible?
But yeah,
So,
when the three of us first time we got in the Evo and started spinning around, it was you could tell right away this was a good matchup for the three of us, and it was done. It was awesome.
so you mentioned you have your pilot's license now, and I follow you on social media, and I see you flying around all the time. So, what's it like having your license and a plane and being able to commute to wherever you want?
I think it's another layer of freedom that is gonna not last. It's like I think we're the last generation that's gonna get to take advantage of this amazing part of living in America. Really, America, Canada, to some extent, it's the most simple and free. Those are places to fly. It doesn't cost anything. Doesn't cost anything to land at airports to use air traffic control. Other countries it does. The air traffic control system was developed in the U.S. and is just such a piece of brilliance that the whole world adopted it. You even have to speak English anywhere in the world. And with air traffic control, they just adopted every
Huh.
letter of the rule. Um, in Southern California, where the weather is generally warm enough that you don't have to worry about snow and ice, I stopped driving to LA. That sounds fancy. Remember,
Really?
my airplane is like a
Yeah.
single engine piston. It's like as efficient as a pickup truck. But if I had anything, voiceovers or anything in LA, I flew there. Santa Monica. There's like 15 airports in the LA area. Just fly there. If you buy 10 gallons of fuel, they loan you a car for
Oh no,
two
shit.
hours. Yeah.
What?
So
Oh
yeah,
man.
it's a little secret society of freedom that once you kind of jump that hurdle and get into it, it is amazing.
And are you just keep your plane at the airport there, or are you gonna build your own strip?
We don't have that kind of land to build a strip, but when we do a full-time move out to Colorado, which we're not quite there yet, there's an airport in Steamboat, an airport in Hayden close by, and it's a little different flying here. Like in SoCal, I can fly every other day. I go to Catalina for lunch. I go to meetings at Catalina all the time. It was such a great business thing, to be honest, to be able to give that
Best buffalo burgers
experience.
there at the airport.
Buffalo
I've
Buffalo,
had
that's
one.
right, at
Yeah, a buddy of mine
DC3,
flew
that's
me over
right.
in his helicopter and had one.
Oh,
Is
so
delicious.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to fly around that island, it's a real experience you give somebody, and that experience could translate into working relationships. I've used it as a business tool and not just a fun thing also, but out here, in the winter, it's difficult to fly without having de-icing equipment or pressurization or turboprop or turbocharged power where you can really climb through the ice. So that's the next step. But it is a layer of freedom. I'm a huge advocate of taking yourself from A to B and not always living in a screen, um, especially as my daughter, you know, turned into a teenager and I watched her friends want a new phone instead of a driver's license
Yeah.
and all this
Crazy.
stuff is just insanity to me. So flying is a whole nother level of that. And it's so attainable in this country right now. And I do believe that freedom is probably going to go away pretty soon.
Hey, freedom is not free.
No,
It's freedom.
it's not. It doesn't take a lot of work, though. It doesn't take a lot of work. The tests are not hard. They're like fourth grade tests. It's not difficult. You do have to be a little bit of the right mentality, a little bit nerdy to pay attention to the details. Um, I was in New Zealand at a race, and there were like 20 helicopters that landed because the roads are kind of hard to get around in New Zealand, but helicopters you can just go dead straight, right? And I'm talking to one of the guys, and I'm like, "Oh, how long you had your license?" He's like, "Nah, I don't have a license." He's like, I was like, "Oh, did you take trains?" Like, "Yeah, by the third lesson I had it." And he's like, "None of these guys have licenses." Yeah, it's like that's just how it is. But they have incidents, regularly. Helicopters are kind of good because when you have as your guy, maybe he demoed it, but when you have like an engine go out, you can auto rotate
Yeah.
for the helicopter.
Yeah.
Planes are a little different, but in any case, I'm such a big proponent of general aviation. I've started doing like a show with a guy named Ant Anstead, who's another Brit. Um, and it's a show about building an airplane. And Um,
You're
and
building it?
combining, we are building it and other people, but it's really so similar. Building a kit plane, which is all pretty much laid out for you, but it's really there's a lot of similarities like hot rod building. Like working with aluminum and rivets, and the engines are pretty old school. And anyway, it's aviation is cool, not just to get you from A to B, but just the whole part of it. Whole aviation world is awesome.
And probably easier to work on, right? Can you, if you need to, you could
I
tinker
do a
with your
lot
engine?
up to a certain point, and then you have to have a certified AMP come who is licensed to sign off on. A lot of times they will let you
Mm.
do most of the work with them looking on, which costs a lot less for their hours. But it's for me, I like it because like in a car, one of my jobs is when I hear a noise or I feel something is to kind of be able to identify it and help the engineers find it. So we have
Right.
fix a problem before it's a problem. And in a plane, when you hear a noise or fear something, your ears swivel. You're like, what the fuck
You're
is
like, what
that?
was that?
Yeah. And so having some clue about what it might be is a pretty good thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. I always wondered what you would have ended up doing if you didn't become a professional driver.
I've thought about this, and I remember when I was like, okay, when I did my first race, and I was like, nobody, I was heads up enough to know that I wasn't going to be fast. I knew enough to realize what I didn't know, and that it's a trained skill, and then nobody comes out and is great. You are either great at learning or you're not great at learning.
Hmm.
But nobody's born with driving instincts. And from a biology major, I view the whole thing from a physiological standpoint. And we have there's only one or two natural instincts that we have in driving that work well for us. Almost all of them try to put you in the ditch.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge amount of training to replace those natural instincts with technique. So I knew that. So anyway, my first race, I was like, I'm either gonna really suck at this and not be able to improve, or I'm gonna be able to get better, and then this is the make it or break it. I'd put in 8 months of being a mechanic to get to that point,
Wow.
to get my license and do one race. And so I did it. I felt like I could learn a lot, but at that moment, I was kind of like my fallback would be go back to school and get into architecture, which
Hmm.
I was fascinated with lighting. It was like lighting engineering had just come out at the University of Colorado, and I loved the architecture of lighting. I really kind of nerded out on even just the vibe a room can give you. Um, but just architecture in general, I really loved it. So that would have been where I went.
That's cool. Art Vandalay, right? Wasn't Art Vandalay an architect?
Oh, well, see, I never went to school, so I don't know shit. But I,
No.
I knew that I was interested.
Oh man, Seinfeld! Don't you remember Seinfeld? Art Vandalay, when George Costanza's alter ego was Art Vandalay, the I think an
Oh,
architect.
I did not
Yeah.
see that one. I did not see
God.
that one. No.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to play that for you. That's all right,
it's a
Tanner.
good it's a good pull. Wow, I'm usually pretty
That,
good with the Seinfeld
does
pulls.
that tell me that I'm spending too much time watching fucking TV? What is next for you? What's next for Tanner Foust?
I don't know. I don't know. I think we're gonna get this farm going. We're thinking about doing weddings on it and stuff like that. Um, I am getting married, so there's a lot of things happening personally. Professionally, the manufacturers that I race for, McLaren and Volkswagen, are very much EV driven.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the racing I do is EV. My new title sponsor is Optima Batteries. You
Oh,
noticed that I was with Rockstar Energy Drink for 18 years,
really? You were with
and
Rockstar? I don't
yeah,
recall.
yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
And change that over to Optima Batteries. So they're between Optima Batteries and their parent company Clarios. They have so many cool things going that's going to be a lot of off-road stuff. So I'm probably going to be spending a lot of time in the dirt, just
Got
like we did
it.
on Top Gear.
And are you still doing Extreme E or not with McLaren?
I don't. That remains to be seen if I do extreme. Not doing Extreme with McLaren next year,
Got it.
but possibly with another team, but not exactly sure yet.
Got it. Okay, I wasn't sure. I mean, I follow you, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
like
you
when
do.
I,
Good.
dude,
Keeping up, Donnie.
oh, I keep an
Damn.
eye on you. When I first saw, it was I think something you put on social media, kind of like thanking, just kind of general. I think it was the first thing that
Yeah.
came out too, and I was reading it. I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I think I don't think Tanner's going to be racing McLaren anymore. And so I started researching. I think a day later, that's when something else came out, and then I read Zach's letter that he puts out, and I was like, no.
No, it was good. We had it. I mean, I got to do so much stuff with McLaren, and to be honest with you, the most fun stuff that I got to do is stuff that I probably will continue to do, and that's drive the Formula One cars in the heritage events. Do other things possibly with their road car side, and so that's the opportunity you can't get really in very many teams in the world, to go drive Mika Häkkinen's 1999 championship winning car with 19,000 RPM shifting on this V10 screaming on one of my favorite racetracks. Sonoma, as you know, is one of my favorite racetracks in the world. And I mean, it's stuff that's out of my wheelhouse. I'm not going in and I'm not going to be Lewis Hamilton, driving around these things. But for me, I get to it. I'm experiencing something from as a biology major that was, wrenching on these dirty ass spec Ford Pinto engines to try to get my license. And now I get to drive the Formula One car that I was drooling over at that same time, on this epic track with this amazing team. Yeah, it's a real pinch me moment to do that stuff. So I'm happy to be able to continue some of that work.
Was it as amazing as you said it was? Because I don't want to quote you, but it's like one of the best days of your life, you said.
Yeah, it was, and it's just a lot of elements of it. They're working with Zach, who incidentally, I did search for Zach's email one time not too long ago, and I typed in Zach Brown into my email search, and an old email came from like 2006 when he and I had talked about doing an indie program way back then.
Shit.
So we had crossed paths way back then, and so coming full circle with that, and then Tony Kanaan and doing stuff with him and Alex Rossi, who I've watched his career through the years, driver. Even going over to Formula One for a bit, doing some incredible stuff, and so getting to do that whole deal. So that particular weekend was also tied in with the Formula One weekend in Vegas, doing hot laps in the road cars, all with the same crew. And it was really amazing time. Just getting into that 99 though, that was the first time that they let me drive one of the F1 cars that was paddle shift, because they had said that a lot of their current drivers don't drive stick, and so they would stick me in the old ones.
They said they don't. Yeah. I'm like, what is this? What's wrong with people?
Yeah, they'd stick me in the old Senna cars and Prost cars, which were epic rolling pieces of history. I wasn't a huge F1 fan back then, and I never was a real fan of the motorsport. I was always a fan of the cars. And about the first era of the cars that I really got bid into, because nobody in my family was into racing. I'm sure if they were, I would have been focused on those late 80s cars. But that 99 car and the way that it screamed, that V10, that's when I just was so like, oh my gosh, these things are, just incredible pieces of machinery. That thing had about the same power as a current car, almost as much, and weighed, what was the number? It weighed 400 pounds less.
Good Lord.
And so the acceleration and the cornering and the braking on that 99 car was, it makes a lot less downforce, but it still makes a lot more downforce than I can handle as somebody not coming out of a downforce world.
Right.
But I certainly can handle keeping my foot on the floor, in a straight line or tracking out of corners, and just the pure acceleration with that power to weight was impossible to describe. It turned that racetrack, which is quite big, into all corners. There were no straightaways on that track.
Just a straight would be like gone near the corner.
We looked at the data coming out of the slowest hairpin and then arcing by the wall and by the start finish, which I put on my Instagram, kind of a post from the outside of the thing, ripping by. It was only full throttle for 2.5 seconds, and it went from about 48 or 50 miles an hour to 171 miles an hour at the start finish line. And it's just, and you're not even going straight. Yeah, not even going straight.
Yeah, it's still a curve, right? It's still curving.
It's still a curve, yeah. And it's the pull and being able to trust that those tires aren't going to snap loose with that, knowing there's that much power going to that contact patch. I mean, getting into the downforce world is fascinating. Even driving a GT car that makes downforce is fascinating to me and a lot of fun. But it's not something you just jump into, especially a historic car like that, and go try to prove something to yourself. So so it was a parade lap, but a lot of parade laps, pushing myself as hard as I was comfortable.
Dude.
And
so cool.
Something very, very unique. Never would have in a million years thought that a lot of what I've done in my career would have been possible, including working on Top Gear. And so it has been an amazing run, and I look forward to keep pushing and trying to find new avenues of this incredible industry to carve a niche, and and keep chasing the fun.
God, that's so cool. Well, dude, thanks for coming on Switch to Channel 2 and having a little chatter with me. I appreciate you, Tanner.
We better go back to 1.
It's time to go back to Channel 1. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Thanks, man. I appreciate you. All right, take it easy, man.
Thank you, brother.